Esta conferencia comenzará a grabarse.
Buenos días, Juan Manuel. So today we will speak about the new ecosystems. Let me change the presentation here. Okay. Buen día, Aurora.
Bom dia, Egunon.
¿Cómo está? ¿Cómo estás?
Buongiorno. Estou bem, obrigada. Estoy bien, gracias. Sono bene, grazie mille.
Es un honor tener hoy con nosotros a Juan Manuel Sinde, presidente de la Fundación José María Ormaechea de Arrimendiarrieta, que si no me equivoco, la fundación creada por Cooperativa Mondragón, ¿es así, Juan Manuel? Bienvenido. Okay, since that Juan Manuel cannot speak, so welcome everybody. Most of you know how do we work. Welcome, Ula. Okay.
Good morning.
Morning, Ula. Thank you. We will dedicate today's meeting to the general revision of the European industrial ecosystems for the recovery. And we have been quite lucky, thanks to Ula and others, okay, because the list of the ecosystem, as far as I know, is still not published, okay, but yesterday there was one person on Twitter that published one photograph about them. So we have that photograph from Twitter, and using that photograph, we have been able to, I insist, not officially, okay, but retrieve the information that you see in the screen. Nothing more, nothing else, okay? So today, my proposal is to think about this, okay? Somebody wants to complete because knows more about have more information, that would be wonderful, okay? But the general idea is to make a review of these ecosystems today and to see how to approach them. Generally speaking, or perhaps in some cases going directly to the ecosystems. Okay, I need to say that our proposal, our general approach for this is not to only analyze isolated ecosystems, but to put them in relation. So I study how one of them influence the others, okay? So viewing them as a complex network, okay? This is the same photo, but I have taken some time to pass it to to the PowerPoint. Okay, it's the information as far as if I have not made any mistake, is the same. Okay, and as you probably know, we have signed an agreement, a contract with the DigiGrow to work on the detections of disruptions or possible problems on those ecosystem, and also to suggest possible solutions for those disruptions. Okay, we are starting now, and one of the topics for today is how to do that, how to best do that. Okay, because it's a very big task, not easy. Okay, and we are sure that we will not be able to cover everything, but we want to be serious in this analysis. We want to use our network. We have the network of the clusters across Europe, but as you know, this group is not only about cluster. This is the European Alliance Against Coronavirus, and we are joining here other actors. For example, welcome Esteban, also here from Eurada. So the proposal is to join force on this analysis, on this detection of possible problems across the different ecosystems. I will give you one example. Okay, this is recent information from here from Spain about lack of sticks for the PCA testing, the test that enables us to know if we are sick or not. Okay, and I have received information about a lack of this kind of testing. So, for example, here in Spain, the government, this is recent news, saying that the government has paid something like 5 times the normal price for those sticks. Okay, and there is one hospital here that is developing a project to 3D print them. Okay, as far as I know, the problem is that usually these sticks don't have any problem, and there are only 2 suppliers in the world making them, neither of them in Europe. Okay, so they are needed in millions. By some calculation, one printer can make something like 16,000 industrial printer by hour. But the problem is that the material must be special. It must be biocompatible, and so it's not the usual material for the 3D printers. Okay, I don't want to stop here. Okay, it's just one example. So returning to the presentation. These are the different, I don't know if I can make zoom or not. Okay, do you see the letters? Are you able to read?
Yes, we can read it.
Thank you. Yes. So this is the list that we have been able to recover. And the question is, how can we study them? Okay, Celine, you are a specialist on this kind of analysis. Okay. The main idea that we are working with now is to create subgroups. Okay, I don't know if in this presentation I have the last. Sorry, I will look for no. I will show you another slide. Sorry. Here, sorry, just one moment. This here. So the idea is not to analyze isolated value chains, but to take them as co-evolving ecosystems, as I was stating before. And one of the key ideas is also to identify keystone agents that we define as those companies or institutions or whatever agent, okay, that are connecting different ecosystems and can influence some of them and are especially useful if we want to make a strategy to make them more flexible or more resilient. Okay, one of the critical ideas is to study the resiliency of every network, improve it if possible. This is very theoretical, but we need to keep that in mind. Okay, so for now, because this is a very complex study, okay, we need to start easy and to probably use these meetings and the specialized groups that we want to define to try to get the critical information from every area. Okay, we don't want to call them industrial value chain, neither they can be called industrial ecosystem because it's the naming that the European Commission is used, but we would like to think about them as nodes of complex networks. Okay, just emphasizing the linking, the need to see them as a part of our complete network, an holistic approach. And we want to create groups, and if you want, you will be invited to participate in those groups by ecosystem, but also we want to nominate for every one of the ecosystems curators. Curators means people that are really specialists on those ecosystems, but have the capacity to have a strategic view on not only her or his ecosystem, but also how that connect with others. Okay, and I don't know, here is Dolores. Yes, Dolores, welcome. There is one example now that we are starting to study on this kind of sorry, not this presentation, the other one. There is another disruption, okay, on the low carbon energy intensive industries that includes the manufacturing of production with higher environmental impact, plastics, chemicals, fertilizers, iron and steel. Okay, so based on some alert shared with from Celine Rosenblatt past Sunday, we have been studying the possibility and that there are a lack of PVC plastic sheets in Europe. Okay, it seems that there are problems. Okay, and we are also going to study that. Okay, and the approach is perhaps not to just replace them or increase the production in the same way that has been done before, but implement the perspective of the green and try to substitute it with other kind of processes or materials more greener, or implement some kind of circular economy on it. Okay, so those are samples, And first, and before going deeper into every one of the ecosystem, I would like to hear your comments on this approach. If there are comments. Sorry.
Hello.
Hello.
Pedro Rocha speaking here from Prototech, Portugal. Basically, I think that the proposal is very, very interesting. So my congratulations to the team that has been working on that. And additionally, I have two specific comments. When I was seeing this specific slide, I add, and also looking to the following ones, I think that in addition to this sector, we have also enabling sectors. What I mean with enabling sectors, it is sectors that somehow are horizontal or provide essential means for these individual sectors to evolve. And in that sense, I am thinking about raw materials or materials should be somehow a ring, an external ring, since it covers all, as well as, for instance, production technologies, both equipment and the digital components of industrial technologies. So these are my first comment on, at least on the scheme that it is with presented. Additional, also digital, somehow it can be a sector there, but also it can be this additional allow that, since it is horizontal to all these sectors, despite being in part covered by industrial technologies, but eventually it makes also sense. So these were my first comments. Was I clear?
Antonio, you're muted.
Your microphone is off. Hi, good morning.
Thank you very much. Yeah, digital is included. Okay, so I totally see the reasoning of about how to produce everything. So I see it. Thank you. More.
Antonio, can I make one small statement? It's about the question of the governance. I think that for the success of this proposal, it should be interesting to study in a model of governance of interclusterization or sharing of ideas that should be able to do that. I think that the Commission now is developing lots of studies in systemic thinking and collective intelligence. And I think that despite the strategy of each of the sectors or the ecosystems, it would be interesting to see if it was possible to develop a new kind of governance where the monetization of the results and the sharing of experience could be more practical and more interesting for all the actors. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaime. Thank you. Very interesting approach. Any other comment?
Well, good morning to you all. Hi, Antonio. This is Paulo from Portugal.
Hello, Paulo.
Railway. Well, it makes all the sense. I think it is a great approach. I would just, considering mobility limited to automotive, even if you describe upfront production of motor vehicles, boats or trains, I think should be more something like transportation and mobility, because it is a much wider than the automotive. I think the automotive, it is something that must be very well thinked, especially as in Europe we have 247 million cars, and the pollutions that it makes, also the aerial traffic. I think the empowerment that trains are coming bigger and bigger, and it will be more relevant in the future in a way. That transportation should give priority to trains instead of airplanes. On this sense, I would say transportation mobility rather than the mobility automotive. I think we should look a little bit further, and especially looking at the latest developments in the European community that say that till 50% of transportation of people and merchandise should be done by train. So just not to focus automotive, it would be my recommendation. I would say so. Transportation and mobility should be probably the issue.
Probably you are seeing the screen, okay, and they have called then the circle the ecosystem mobility automotive, but in the text explaining it, there is the production of motor vehicles, boats, and trains and accessories. I understand not only production, but also the running on that, okay.
Antonio. Alberto here. I have a small comment also related with in this line. If I could jump in.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Alberto, welcome.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Also in Catalonia, we continue to have this mobility automotive because really the automotive industry is really very, very strong and have a heavy impact in this. But personally, I have more on the line of what the comment from our colleague from Portugal, because really, if you look at the strategic challenges that all the mobility sector has experimenting in this last year, really there is a ramification of the value chain, and now also for the automotive industry, there are important players from other value chains like energy, for example, the producers of batteries, of other power supply operators, and really it's becoming more and more intermodal. So it's just a comment. It's I think it's the reality is more, especially for me in a few years. Well, automotive will continue to be very important, but really, I don't know. I will be nicer for me to see smart mobility or something, including many other things that in development.
Antonio, are you on mute?
Sorry again. Yes, I think that we are speaking of the same point, that we are not going to study only static ecosystems, but complex systems. And this is what you are speaking about, that this is not only automotive. Automotive is now related with a lot of different, or mobilities related to a lot of different fields. Pablo Fernández del Castillo, you wanted to speak. Welcome.
Thank you. Now, I simply want to say I'm surprised that finance is not included in the picture. If we want to address the value chain and be able to work with the innovation, it is vital to include finance, which is now in Europe prone to risk aversion, and there's a lack of funding for SMEs, for example. So any design of a recovery plan needs to address finance. And I think also in an innovative way, it can involve also the design of crypto and complementary currencies. I think we need to think out of the box also in the way we finance our economy.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, 100%.
Maybe Antonio, yeah. So maybe first of all, this different ecosystems is I think still work in progress, but it has been presented yesterday to the economy ministers. It was at the Council of the Economy Ministers, and there our Commissioner Breton presented this. And I mean, I was not at the meeting, so I don't know the reaction of the economy ministers. So probably they had a discussion or they will still feedback on this. But this is what has been proposed by Commissioner Breton. And what we were working on are on the different ecosystems. And this work is still ongoing, where we prepare fiches with information, economic information about these ecosystems, because of course for evidence-based policy making, you need figures, you need to know about the effects the crisis has on these different ecosystems. And it is of course very difficult because there is also a lot of, let's say, overlap between some of the ecosystems. So that's why the different colleagues working on this have to go into the different NACE codes. And then there was a discussion which NACE code goes to which ecosystem. And it was really not obvious, I can tell you. And so this is where we are now. And of course, this kind of presentations are always a compromise. But it is also, let's say, a political communication. And that's why, for example, on mobility, automotive got be highlighted. It doesn't mean mobility is only automotive. That's why the description next to it. But our commissioner wanted to make a point about automotive being important. So it's about political communication, and it should help for the recovery package, which is supposed to come out now on the 27th of May, to help the discussion. And all the way how the recovery package is financed is another communication. So there's a whole lot of other thinking and preparation going on the different discussions, and many discussions on how to finance a recovery package. So this is really on the industrial ecosystems, and I just can highlight that our team is the owner of the proximity and social economy ecosystem, meaning owner in the sense we have to deliver the facts and figures, and we are working very hard on this. But this is ongoing work and not yet finalized, but that's why we are also very much aware of the different discussion going on between the different ecosystems. And you see very large ecosystems like tourism, because if you look at the short description, what is under it, it is enormous. And I think, because now, Antonio, the bubbles you have here are all more or less the same size, but I think in the original drawings, I tried to have the sizes reflecting the importance in numbers of GDP. It is, of course, a very simplified method to use only percentage of GDP. And also there we had a lot of discussions that this is not the best way to do it. But when you need to quickly do something, particularly for policymakers, you have to use data you can get. And the quickest one are, unfortunately, the GDP-related ones. So maybe this is just a bit as a background of what is behind, and so this, I can tell you really also within the different DGs, we had a lot of discussion about this ecosystem, but in the end, it's a political decision how to present it.
Thank you. Very enlightening, Ula. Thank you very much for sharing.
If I may just.
Marek, yes.
I put. Hi, I'm Marek, working in Ula's unit. I put the speech of our president because you need to read it in together, and you see exactly kind of announcements of what recovery package will be and how it can be financed, and it's very clear that all of this, what you see in ecosystems, there are the priorities cuts across with Green Deal, with digitization, with resilience across all these ecosystems, which you can find. And when you look at this picture, it can really give impression that it is in silos, but it's not. It shouldn't be at all. It's not what our definitely intention is to create silos, but it's about concentration of the value and supply chains within this ecosystems and make them resilient and make them green and make them digitized. But at the same time, the challenge is as well to bring maybe joint cluster initiatives between them, and build the cross ecosystems working together. Because when you are talking about textiles and mobility and digital, this is how the world works. You bring them together, and it's not separated and not in silos. So in this, and financing, as said, this will come as Ula already mentioned. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Marek. Okay, more comments.
May I?
Yes.
I think that instead of discussing the model, it is now the model. And so I think we should think of how we can help on each of these segments and crossings, how we can help to make solutions, to bring solutions. Despite I also agree that the financial sector as a sector also maybe needs help. Not only the funds as a tool, as education as a tool. Education is not there and we have to care about, but it's a tool, and money is a tool. But the banks or the financial sector maybe need, but we don't have the power to change this model. So we should concentrate on getting solutions, on helping, on maybe if we think that banks need also some help, we may also suggest solutions for that. But instead of discussing what should be in here and is not, we may complete in our group, but let's work.
I agree that in my mind, more than help, probably banks need helps, but more than help, I will say that they need a change, is innovation, some kind of innovation in financing. Okay, but we're all right. Okay, Dolores.
No, just good morning, everybody. I would say that maybe from this framework presented that we need to work with these 14 domains. If I understood well, these are industrial ecosystems or industrial-based ecosystems. For this reason, finance is out. But as Aurora just said, it's true that can be a tool or resource that can be needed, similar to digital. Digital itself can be a domain, but also can be a tool or resource for all the rest of the industrial ecosystems. And as Ula also said, it will be great to represent this from different sides with GDP, but also from the vulnerability of each of one on the impact of COVID-19 or other pandemia. So in this sense, we can really see the impact in GDP and also depending on the vulnerability, and we can have a clear picture how this can really impact to the economy or the society in terms of vulnerability, but also in GDP. And I think that a next step should be to start working try to defining based on these ecosystems our flexible and dynamic network, how these ecosystems are more or less connected we can start working on that and try to identify which are the key actors or nodes that can play a role in these different ecosystems.
Perfect. Thank you, Dolores. I see that you have changed your name. I'm glad.
Yeah, no, Celine proposed me, and in fact, I never thought about it, and I said, okay, it's easy, I do it.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you. Any other comment?
Antonio, can I ask a question in this line?
For sure.
Maybe it would be a question to Marek, and maybe in this discussion when we're talking about now finding solutions on how to look at the disruptions in these ecosystems, could you repeat again the definition you've given to the value chains that you've given in another meeting also for this group? What are we talking about when we're talking about value chains?
This is you know, I maybe we can make a separate session on supply chains versus value chains. There's lots of literature on this. Basically, and shortly, there's the perspective from supply to pull. So supply chain is more push, meaning it's physical. It's what you physically shift from place to place, or what physically and logistically you need in order to have things, including as well services which enable this inbound, outbound logistics, but physically. At the same time, value chain is from the customer perspective, where you create the value in order having the product or services being delivered. So you can have the research which has 80% of value of the product, but in supply chain it's not so important. So supply chain is physical, linked to logistics. Value chain is linked to value, where the value is created. And on top of this, when you bring now the notion of global value chains, which is coming and been discussed in OECD and World Bank since like 2014-15, about how this value is moving across countries, yeah, and where the activity and value is captured, and this value added, including remuneration of people, remuneration for the owners of the capital, remuneration for people who are giving value for a certain product. In order to make it more illustrative, if you take the iPhone production, most of the supply chain is in China, but the value chain, most of the value chain is in the US, because research, marketing, and sales is in the US. So this is basically the difference between supply chain and value chains, but they are overlapping each other, no? Or they are almost the same sometimes. It depends very much on what kind of value chain and supply chain it is. But it would be excellent to have a session on this.
Yeah, very interesting. That remembers me another question. Is there a definition of industrial ecosystem? What is
Antonio, don't get started on this. Sorry to say so.
Okay.
You will not believe how much discussion we had, and I just think, and I like many comments in the chat. Let's go now. We have an idea what is on the table. We can spend hours, days discussing it, and we all are right. We will all have a different point of view, but just let's not get started on an exact definition. It's the same like clusters. If you start to go for an exact definition of clusters, you get lost. So I think the best thing is let's get on and not get lost in discussions, because we did not get a specific definition.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Antonio,
Carlos.
can I? Sorry.
Okay, Carlos Trias first, please.
Yes, good morning. I haven't the intention to speak today, but I'm very happy to share again so interesting session. I am very agree with all the comments, especially from Ula and Karel, and seeing the described ecosystems. I agree with the selection. I think that all are key for our goals, taking into account the 2030 strategy, the 2030 agenda, and all related policies and action plans that are in the calendar. And for me, perhaps the most important is to rightly monitor the progress of each ecosystem in individual terms, as the own performance, but also in terms of the progress of the related ecosystems. In my view, there are many possibilities for generating synergies among the diverse ecosystems. But I'd like to better think on all this next Monday. I try to see some examples on right experiences in the adding value in the value chains. Sorry for the expression, and perhaps with concrete examples we can see the relationships between ecosystems, taking into account key European value chains. I'll try to think a little bit, and of course, with my from my experience, I am sure that there are a lot of possible experience that show how can work this kind of ecosystems. Thank you, Antonio.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Daniel González. Can you speak?
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you, everyone. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I just wanted to say, because a very tactical comment related also to what Aurora was mentioning. I am thinking a little bit about the how to make it work, and I would only like to say it's a bit of a final word. We need to describe or to tell the system or tell this process, the people who are going to be involved in it, when they are doing the right work, what is expected from it. How does the system look for the information in the correct way? How does the system provide the information in the correct way? When is the Commission going to be happy with the work? And what is exactly expected? Because of course, we cannot aspire to cover the 100% of the needs or 100% of the breaks in the value chains. And if you don't have a clear expectation, you lose motivation because anything you do will be considered fine, or you just say to go as much as I can, but not clearly defined in terms of quality or the shape of the information. So I just wanted to say when the methodology is described, we need to set clear instructions for what is expected and how is this information, frequency, form, format, the receiver, emitter, what this is going to look like and how it's going to work, so that everybody who is contributing to it knows exactly what they are expected to do, and then you get the maximum efficiency for your effort. This was my contribution.
Okay, thank you. Ula can correct me, okay, but I think that's pretty clear what they are expecting, okay, because it's in the screen. The expectation is for us to give them to identify disruptions and prioritize them, okay, to suggest best possible solutions, okay, and to also identify critical companies in danger of being bought by external capital, okay, and also to give them proposals, innovative proposals for the rapid alert function. So it's not so. From my understanding, the request is clear, okay?
So maybe if I can come in here just to clarify,
sure.
because we have two things here. One is this ad hoc grant which we have given out to you, which is really to help to support the work you're doing right now. And we do not expect with this to have a complete rapid alert system to be developed, to be put in place. This would be, of course, an illusion. This was just something, it's a little contract, and we tried, because this is something we can do without going through a lot of administrative procedures. So we just wanted to react quickly and want to get kickstart the work. Then from this, it would be good to have like 1 or 2 pilots to show that you're working on a problem and you can develop on 1 or 2 either a methodology or to show how it works. And then we can look into how we take the next steps and also what kind of financing can then be used for it. So now it's really to experiment and in order to help you. So don't be stressed about the fact that you have a contract with us. It's the contrary. It's to help you and to allow you to experiment. But then if we want to roll out, there of course we need different budget, much bigger budget, etc. Then it will also go through different procedures. But now it's really to help you to experiment.
Thank you, La.
Can I say something? Sorry.
Go on, Vasco.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Maybe it's something that is hidden behind this graph, but I'm worried about data. Usually we say that the data is the petrol of the future. And I don't see in this that data visible and important in order to be within, for instance, Europe and so on. So data storage, creating mechanisms to have it inside. For instance, imagine what happened if, for instance, GPS is shut down. What happened? We have alternatives at this moment in Europe, but for instance, if data is storage outside and there is let's say a cable cut and so on, we are stuck. I don't know if that is in the digital, but I think could be more visible to show that Europe is also investing in some infrastructure that can support the future.
I think this is the kind of analysis that we need to do. And I think also that will be fitting in the digital sphere. or ecosystem if you want, but you are right. We need to speak about that.
But if I can come in on this also, because as we said, the greening, the digitalization, and also the social aspects are these underlying aspects which are cross-cutting everything. And there is right now work going on a European data space, and so data is very high on the agenda, particularly data for industrial use, and it's very close to our commissioner who comes from this field. So it's one of these cross-cutting issues, because every of this ecosystem needs the data handling and see how they can use data for their business model.
Yeah, and cybersecurity. That is not written, but I am sure this is one of the main topics, or at least for us, it's clear that we need to analyze that. Cybersecurity is totally critical. Thank you, Lula.
Hi, good morning. It's Anais. I'm sorry I got in a little bit late, so I missed the first 10 minutes, and that was probably quite helpful. But just a very short question. If I look at the health industrial ecosystem, what is next to it? Is it the only thing that we're going to look at, or can it be more? Because I'm thinking one of the key aspects for us, for example, is research also, and that goes into a lot of things under health. So I'm just wondering what you have next to it. Can we go beyond that, or is it what we should look at first?
I will say from my side, okay, just from our side, that we need to go whenever we think that it's important to go. As Sula said, we are quite free to suggest, okay? So if something is critical in our experience and we think so, we need to explain.
Yeah. Okay. Great. No, because I see digital and health, and and I also give me a lot of idea, because this is actually nice that it's put one next to another, because this is one of the big things now in health, to go digital because of the crisis. So okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? If not, I will suggest some ideas, okay? We will continue speaking tomorrow, because tomorrow, you know, we just is now a tradition that every Sunday we think about methodology of how to improve our work, and we will go deeper tomorrow on that point, okay? But I think that we need to first provide this list to our clusters. I will speak about cluster in this case, okay? And propose them to classify themselves on those ecosystems, so we could map which clusters are working on every ecosystem, and perhaps a cluster is working on different ones, on some of them. Okay, no problem. We can analyze those relationships, and so we will have a map of who is working in which area. Okay. From that point, we could start making focus meetings about every one of those ecosystems, proposing not only clusters. Okay, and sorry, I forgot. Not only clusters. Okay, we can start with clusters because it's something for us easy. Okay, you know that there are something like 1,000 clusters in Europe, so most of them will be easily classifying at least one of these areas, ecosystems. So we should be able to have a map of something like, I don't know, 100 cluster for 70 cluster for ecosystem, okay? And with that, we should be able to reach for real experts on every one of the ecosystems. So I will propose to make specific sessions for those that have declared that they are working on those nodes or ecosystem, okay? But not only for clusters, for sure, but opening those sessions to cluster members, companies, but also for non-cluster members, meaning regional agencies or regional governments or R&D or universities or whoever is interested from Europe on those fields and try to hear them, to give them the floor to hear what they think or where they find problems and record everything. Okay, and that could be a very interesting exercise. And from those meetings, we could for sure look for links and opportunities and solution possible projects for the future. Okay. I think that, for example, another case that is very horizontal is the social economy or proximity social economies. Probably we will find social economy related association or companies or cooperative working on, for example, retail with the cooperative Mondragon or automotive or a lot of them. Okay, so that I think will be in itself a very interesting exercise to map our ecosystem, meaning not only the cluster but the ecosystem of this group. Okay, with those industrial ecosystems and look for what happens. And those meetings could be organized in the next 3-4 weeks very quickly, because if not, we can lose the train of the urgencies. Something like I don't know, 1-2 meetings by day, probably one, allowing everybody to participate in different. Okay. Perhaps in the afternoons, because I think that we should keep the morning session. I don't know. I'm not sure about that, but I think, or perhaps mixing mornings with afternoon, but I don't think that it will be enough with 1 hour, because too short to go deep. And I will propose, we have started working with Ilaria here on some kind of model for prepare, for send to the different actors, cluster companies, stating what are we going to speak about, what are we looking for, and how can they contribute to the dialogue. And so we should be able to retrieve from every one of those nodes meeting, ecosystem meetings, some critical information. If there is a real critical disruption on those ecosystems, we should be able to detect them. It will be very strange, difficult to understand if we are not able to detect those problems through these meetings. My mind. This is the general proposal. I would like to hear your comments on that.
Antonio, Ilaria, I agree with what you say, and my suggestion is to ask to all these clusters and participants to this each focused meeting, to ask them what they are, where they are going. So taking a picture about the dimension, the dynamic, and not only a static picture on a current, mapping the present, but making explicit consideration about, more or less is the smart specialization, but at European level. So what are the challenges that each ecosystem is facing? Talking about textiles, talking about tourism. So in order to map also the challenges in the future to come, not only the current disruption. So in this way, we can have a map also about the purposes and building this synergy, this co-evolving ecosystem based on purpose and facing specific challenges. So we will be able to make priority in this case, because we can evaluate specific disruptions, considering the future to come, the aim, the goals. I mean, a sort of long-term strategy that is emerging now.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Celine, I want to involve you in this designing of the methodology, if you agree, because as Ula said, this is just a draft of what could be done in the future. Okay, but it would be good if we define the draft as best as possible. Okay, so if we are making some kind of data analytics or data, but we need to define a structure for the data. We could start from the beginning with some clear ideas about how to define the relationship between the entities and how make that as well as possible. Alberto, sorry.
Yes, actually, the line of what also Ilaria was commenting, I think that it is very interesting the approach of a matrix that was presented in TCI webinar by VDI some weeks ago, and actually we take it in Catalonia and try to make an exercise. It's a matrix that is combining two elements. One, it's actually the impact, estimating the impact of the COVID-19 crisis on different sectors, with, of course, a strongest impact, for instance, in tourism or in other, well, depending on different analysis you can have, or the knowledge you can have, of course, is not exactly. And the other axis to consider is that is very, very important. Is what are the present strategic challenges that an ecosystem or a sector or an industry had when the crisis started? So, of course, there was some industries that were in complete transformation already. It is a very evident case is the automotive industry, with a completely change of model in business model because of different factors, the electrification of the vehicle, the different use of the different models in using the mobility, all these kind of things. That and this shows that there are some sectors that maybe the crisis they find them more or less prepared to this, because there was in change of already some structural changes that they were already experimenting. So I think with by crossing these two variables, I think it makes a very interesting analysis on what to do on each one of these. So it could be another way to analyze these ecosystems.
Please send me send us the information, because yeah, it sounds very good, very well. Thank you, Alberto. So it's 10:30. We should close, but I don't know if somebody wants to make a last remark. If not, tomorrow 9:30 we will continue. In fact, because we are speaking about how to launch the next phase of our work. Thank you, Ula, for your support on it. Okay, it's important. It's very important. Okay. Thank you, everyone. You are invited.
Thank you. Have a nice Saturday. Bye.
Bye bye. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye bye. See you tomorrow.
That's it, almost.